What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. The truth and nothing but the truth. Errol Spence Jr. makes his return to the ring tomorrow night in his backyard, Arlington, Texas. The DeSoto native will put up his WBC and IBF titles when he takes on the American Dream from Cuba, defected from Cuba, WBA welterweight champion, Yordenis Ugas. This is going to be a big-time matchup, a very intriguing matchup. You know, this fight here is going to be have a little bit of everything, in my opinion. I think it could potentially start off as a chess match, and then it could turn into a very fan-friendly toe-to-toe battle. Both guys have steadfastly stated that if they're victorious, that they will chase undisputed, and that means taking on WBO welterweight champion Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, Errol Spence Jr., in my opinion, is a top dog at 147 pounds. He has the best jab in boxing out of southpaw stance, has a good straight left hand, knows how to control distance, an underrated boxer when he chooses to box. He's a versatile fighter. He can come forward, put the pressure on you, jab to the body, get you against the ropes, and punish you to the body. He's a guy that has a wide range in his arsenal. A very fundamentally sound fighter. The Tim Duncan of boxing, Errol Spence Jr., a.k.a. Free Smoke. He'll be taking on Yordenis Ugas. Now, he's from Cuba, but he's not the classic Cuban fighter. He's a guy that applies pressure. He's a counterpuncher. He's what you call a patient, aggressive fighter. He doesn't waste punches. He's out of the school of Floyd Mayweather more than the school of Cuban boxing. He don't waste no punches. When he throws his punches, he's very accurate. He don't believe in wasting a lot of punches. That's why he's able to fight and fight at a high level for 12 rounds. He don't slow down because he's not throwing a lot of punches just to be throwing punches, which in some cases can hurt you in the latter part of the fight. He's not looking to do that. Now, if he can't solve the jab of Errol Spence Jr., he's not winning the fight. He's going to have to take away that jab. That's easier said than done. He's going to have to counter Errol Spence Jr., who seems to be in that aggressive mindset. He's looking to get a stoppage win. He hasn't had a stoppage win in a long time. But that seems to happen when you go to the upper echelon of fighting. When you fighting those guys that at the top tier, the knockouts don't seem to come as frequent as they came when you fighting lower tier competition. Canelo Alvarez said that numerous times. He has said that on numerous occasions. They asked the Canelo, hey man, why you ain't knocking guys out like you did earlier? He said, man, I'm fighting top tier fighters. When you fight top tier fighters, the knockouts do not come as easily or as frequently as they do when you're fighting, I ain't gonna say lower level competition, but guys that are not on that level. Let me just say it like that. Now, Errol Spence Jr. is a guy that can control range. Again, he's a guy that can keep this fight on the outside and win it, in my opinion, by unanimous decision. But I've been listening to his interviews in the lead up to this fight. He don't seem to be in that mindset. He seems to be more in the mindset of how he fought Shawn Porter. If that's the case, that'll give Yordenis Ugas a better chance of winning this fight. Make no mistake about it. Because Yordenis Ugas wants a guy to throw punches. He wants a guy to come to him so he can counter. If he's got to, basically fend off the jab and try to get inside and be the pressure fighter, that's not in his wheelhouse. He can do it. Not to say he can't do it, but that's not in his wheelhouse. He prefers a guy to come to him. He's out of the same fighting style of Mikey Garcia. He's basically a bigger version of Mikey Garcia, in my opinion. And that's why I believe that Errol Spence Jr. should fight the same fight he fought against Mikey Garcia. Get the win, man, because you got a big undisputed fight coming on later this year against Terrence Bud Crawford. Get the win and move on to bigger and better things. Now, this is a big fight, but you got a big fight coming up, potentially, if you're able to get this victory Saturday night against Terrence Bud Crawford. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Now, Ugas is a guy that fights out of the orthodox stance. So he's a guy that he uses his jab as a rangefinder. He's using his jab to try to land harder shots. You know, he's not really looking to use the jabs as far as to score off the jab. He's looking at, like I said, he's using it as a rangefinder to set up his right hand. That's basically what he's looking to do. And he throws a good right hand. He throws a good chopping right hand. He was landing that chopping right hand on on Pacquiao at will in that fight, especially when he got toward the middle portion of that fight and toward the latter part of that fight. He couldn't miss Pacquiao with that chopping right hand. And he's fighting another southpaw fighter, but Pacquiao is a little bit more reckless. I ain't gonna say a little bit more reckless. He's way more reckless than Errol Spence Jr. He jumps in and he leaves himself vulnerable. And Yordenis Ugas made him pay the price time and time again in that matchup. Errol Spence Jr. is a little bit more patient. He's not going to be jumping in like that. He's going to be setting everything up off the jab, and he's going to be trying to control range. I think that's what he should do. Now, will he do that? Like I said, in these interviews, he seems to me to be in a more aggressive mindset. He's looking to prove a point. You know, he feels that he should have been able to take on Manny Pacquiao if it wasn't for the serious eye injury that sidelined him for that fight. Ugas scooped in and got a career-defining victory. And Spence is sitting there thinking like, damn, that was supposed to be my big fight. That was going to be my passing of the torch type of fight where I take that torch from Pacquiao and I become an even bigger star. Now, make no mistake about it, Errol Spence Jr. is one of the biggest stars in the sport of boxing. It's only two fighters that can command having their fights take place in AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. That's a football stadium. That's Canelo Alvarez and Errol Spence Jr. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. But I like Errol Spence Jr. to mix it up. I think he's going to take heed to better judgment. Hopefully this is the case, because if it ain't the case, then it's a 50-50 fight in my opinion. But I think he will box on the outside. I think he will control range. I think he will constantly hit and pepper Ugas with the jab, making Ugas have to reset. And when Ugas tries to slip the jab and get with a little bit closer to get off his shots, I think he'll make him pay with the straight left hand. I think he'll be able to jab to the body, back Ugas to the ropes, and I think he will punish Ugas to the body. I could even see a late stoppage. And I'm not saying that Ugas would get knocked down or stopped like that. I think maybe his corner could stop the fight. I think he will bust up Yordenis Ugas. And I think that you might could see a 10th round TKO in the favor of Errol Spence Jr. Let me go with that prediction. I said I was leaning toward a 12-round unanimous decision, but I kind of looked at how Ugas kind of got busted up in the Pacquiao fight. You look at his face. He got touched up in that fight. And look at how he got touched up in the Abel Ramos fight. He gets touched up in fights. And I think you find a guy that's a more accurate, a more stronger puncher than either Abel Ramos or Manny Pacquiao. And I'm talking about a 42-year-old Manny Pacquiao who still had power. He still had thunderous power still, but he was just not as accurate, man. People was kind of sleeping on that fight. Many people thinking like Ugas just dominated that fight. He won the fight, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like some total domination. That was like a 8 rounds to 4, 7 rounds to 5 victory for Yordenis Ugas. It ain't like he watched Pacquiao. Pacquiao threw way more punches. He threw 2 times more punches than Ugas, but he just very, very inaccurate, man. And that could be a problem in this fight, because you're going against a guy that's not going to be as inaccurate as Pacquiao. And a guy like Ugas that don't throw a lot of punches, he's not a volume puncher. He's an accurate puncher. He's an economical puncher. He don't waste punches. He could find himself on the wrong end of a decision loss to Errol Spence Jr. He'll be crying after the fight saying, oh, man, I won the fight. I landed the more meaningful shots. I landed the more sharper shots. I landed the shots that did more damage. He can say that type of stuff, but then when you look at the punches landed, you know, Spence Jr. landed 85 more punches than you throughout the 12 rounds. And how can you claim you won the fight? Even though it's a round by round, it ain't the total punches landed after 12 rounds. It's round by round. Each round is scored individually. But you can see, I can see a scenario playing out that Ugas not being active enough and end up losing a very competitive decision to Errol Spence Jr. and then crying about it afterwards. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts on who you like in this particular matchup. I like Errol Spence Jr. by late stoppage. I think the corner stops the fight as, again, Ugas gets busted up and he's stopped by his corner and he lives to fight another day and comes up short. And we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts on who you like in this particular matchup. You like Spence or you like Ugas? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And if you think it's going to be a stoppage, give me the round you think the fight gets stopped in. Follow me on Twitter, JBsports3303. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports. The man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.